and we'll make it available later. So hello, everyone. Thank you for coming to our monthly Rapido meetings. It's great to be here. I haven't seen you in a while, and I'm really, really happy to be here again, especially to bring you some news of where we stand with Rapido, new features, etc. for the upcoming release. So let's just kick it off because we have a lot of content for this meeting today. And as always, I'll start by sharing my presentation with you. We'll leave the questions to the end so that I can see the questions. While I'm presenting, I cannot see them, so we'll try to keep them to the end. And as always, I'm open for a conversation with you guys. Not only you can submit your questions already through the presentation via the chat or the QA, and then I'll address them. And if you want to speak up, I can also unmute you. So I'll start sharing. Okay, so here we are today, our October meeting. And as we usually do, we'll go through some status on what's happening with the Rapido community, where we are now, where we're heading. We'll talk about the November release, which should be placed in your productions by the 6th of November, if I'm not wrong, but November, the beginning of November. And we'll cover some of the frequently asked questions that we've stumbled upon, and then we'll move to the questions that you might have or the discussions that you want to have with us. So what's going on with the Rapido community? Okay, so amazing. We have new live customers. We have new institutions that are live in Australia. We have new institutions that are live in North America. We have new institutions that are in the process of implementing Rapido. So how does this are fantastic news? We see our community growing. How does this affect you, those of you here that have Rapido? You probably see for those pods in these communities, you'll see new partners, new options, many more offers. So this is really good news for all of us. I also wanted to point that we continue to try and enlarge the knowledge that we have on Rapido, and there's a new video that you can find in the Knowledge Center under the training section. This will be under the extended training about the Find Partner functionality. What does it do? How you can use it? And I really recommend Rapido users to go there and try it out. The idea behind this function, I just want a little reminder here, is to allow you to fulfill borrowing requests that were not found actually through your current defined networks, via the pods, via the peer-to-peer mechanisms that you have. And if you have already given permission to see your holdings through this window, someone might find you. You might find someone that you want to do resource sharing with. And as always, this is an opportunity also to ask you to ask your friends to enable this toggle field that just lets this functionality show what you have, what your holdings are. And of course, no one cannot send a request without having all of the functionality set up or all of the communication that is needed. So it's just a way of finding new partners, but nothing will happen out of this if you don't want it to happen. If you have more questions, please talk to us. We'll help you understand more. And a good place to start is going to watch that very short video. In the documentation, we have two new sections. One is the glossary. I think that one of the, and maybe some of you that have gone through an Rapido implementation, one of the very basic, I think, things that we understood that were important for Rapido is just to make it clear what we're talking about when we're talking about the concepts and the language. And it might differ from previous systems that you had. So the idea of this glossary section was to try and make it easier for you to understand the Rapido concepts. Again, they might differ. We know that there are concepts that we use differently than other systems. And by adding this section, the idea is to try to make it easier just to understand the language. And as always, I invite you to review it. And if there's anything, you can always comment on that, and our documentation team will be happy to adjust or to add if needed. Another section that I don't have listed here that I think might be useful is a section, we've enlarged the section on letters. This section is under the configuration, so you might want to take a peek. We've talked a lot with the community on letters. We are thinking about how we should handle them now in the future. But for now, at least, we've tried to make it easier to understand what each letter is and maybe some tips on how to configure them, etc. So this is another section that you might want to take a look. So what has happened since we last met? Well, we had Igloo, and it was really an amazing opportunity personally for me to be there and meet those of you that could make it to Igloo personally after so many years of not being able to see you in person. So that was really great. But in addition to that, we had many Rapido presentations, not only the presentations that Ex Libris gave, but also customer presentations, very good content. And I think that's going to be available. If it's not available yet, it's going to be available pretty soon to everyone. I think now it's only available to those that register to the conference, but pretty soon they're going to be open for everyone to see. And I strongly recommend that you take a peek into that. And now one of the things that we did in our presentation was we discussed a little bit about the vision, our vision for resource sharing. And I want to share with you that a slide from that meeting, because it is relevant for us, because you'll see that everything that we're doing will adjust in general to that resource sharing vision. And we're coming to the end of this year. I'm showing you the November release. We have one more release. And as you know, we're already working on the releases for next year. So I want to prepare you on what's coming up. So, so you can see here our vision, our strategic vision. First of all, at the heart of it is being open to change at all times. So the innovation, thinking about the future, and not only sustaining functionality that is needed, that is very important, of course, today, but continue to be open to the market, new technologies, and new ways of doing resource sharing. This continues to guide us at the core, at the center. Beyond that, we are actually today the fastest growing ILM network. And you know that we do our document delivery, our digitization of chapters, providing chapters and articles, for example, via Rapid, by joining that community and being part of it. And we're pretty close to reaching the 600 customers, which is amazing. And the same is happening for Rapido, for the Rapido returnable pods, as I mentioned at the beginning. So we're seeing a network that is growing. And part of this growth is also related to our ecosystem. And, you know, we've talked in the past a lot about integrations and being able to make to maintain networks and to do resource sharing with the institutions who want to do resource sharing. So we continue to view this as one of the hearts of Rapido, continue to support the communication between you and your partners. We'll see a lot of that in the November release. User-centric, and this is now I'm using it in a different way that we've talked in the past, but really focusing on our users. And by users, we mean our staff, also the staff that's using the product, and of course our end users. And you know that Rapido has that at its core, transforming that experience for the end user, but maybe farther on, saying that we want to see the same type of transformation for our staff. And sustainability, enabling you to do more in different ways. For example, if we talk about how our workflows of sending and providing digital materials, if we're talking about controlled digital lending, if we're talking about making it easier to identify multi-volumes, all of these are at the core of sustainability and really reducing, when and if possible, the physical shipping. So a lot of developments around that. Before, two things before I go into the November release. So the first thing is that at the beginning of next year, we're planning to publish our roadmap, our basic roadmap, the main features for Rapido. So stay tuned for that. This will be available for all of you as we do for other products at Ex Libris. So this is one thing to take into mind. The other thing is that the working groups are working and meeting, which is fantastic. So we're approaching a point where you will soon be invited to do nurse voting and all of this important collaboration between you, the customers, your needs, and what the product is doing here. And also, soon, we'll launch Ideas Exchange for Rapido. So I'm asking you for a little bit more of patience. All of this is coming on 2023. We're already there. We're becoming a mature product now. new, innovative, but much more mature product. Many of you joining our meeting today are not part of the Australian pod. They're probably sleeping, I hope. But I did want to bring up some changes that we did on the terms for the Australian pod. And the reason I'm bringing it here, first of all, just to have it here and so you can see what's changing. The documentation has been updated. But I wanted more to share the process of how this happened. So the changing in terms of pods is not something that we really want to do, but sometimes we have to do it. The idea of me discussing this with you now is that this was a community effort by the Australian community. They met, they voted, they filled the survey. We had even some meetings about this, and we did this as a collaborative effort. So I'm not expecting to have you all change, run and rush and change terms. But the possibility is there, and this is one thing that I wanted to make clear. And secondly, I also wanted to make clear that it's a community effort. You own the terms, and we make them available. But this is the way we did it in Australia. I won't go through the changes the Australian community knows. Just to give some visibility on the process for existing requests, the terms the previous terms continue to apply, and this is also what the patrons, what the end users saw. So we continue to respect that. But from the moment we sent the announcement that we were changing the terms that were required to change, the patrons will receive the new terms. This is what they see in the discovery, and those apply to the new requests. So this is just a little bit on how this would work in case we would need such a change. Okay, and with that, we're really moving into the core of this presentation, which is the November release highlights. The documentation is already available, so after this meeting, if you want to take a look, you can go there. So again, we talked about the flexible ecosystem, and we bring you with this release two very important developments. The first development is related to last resort. So we previously, I think a few releases ago, we talked about being able, something we were waiting a long time to happen, to be able to push a request as a last resort to Vulture or Tipasa. So that happened already. What's new in this release is that now we can do the same for a relay request. What I'm showing you here is basically some parts of the configuration that will be needed. I think this actually might be relevant to some of our Canadian friends here, or maybe others that are listening. And what you need to do is very similar. It's in the documentation, but it's very similar to what we do with other last resort type of configurations, where you take a partner, and I'm just pointing out here, you would need to select the code relay, name it, I think this is a free text field, but you need to fill it up. The profile type for this type of last resort will be NZIP, and the system type will be relay. Now, if you click on the parameters tab, what you need to do is select export to third-party yes, and then of course you will need to add information that you have from relay regarding servers and things like that. But this would be like the very basic configuration that you will need to do. Okay, so now we have relay. Now something that many of you, I know many of you were awaiting the next slide, the next functionality. I'm really happy to have it. Okay, so many of you have talked to me during the past years now, on the integration with Reprints Desk. And we now have it from November release. And I'll walk you through how this implementation works, what we've done, and we've worked very closely with the Article Galaxy team, the Reprints Desk team, to make this happen. What we've added is a Cloud App. So you would go to the Cloud App Center. So I remind you here, the little squares here are Cloud App Centers. And you look for the Article Galaxy Cloud App. As you know, you need to have a relationship with Reprints Desk in order to ask for articles. So this is just something important to know because it won't work. You can download the application and take a look, but for the whole functionality to work, you of course need to be subscribed to the Reprints or have a contract with the Reprints Desk team. So we're looking here for the application. The application looks like this: Article Galaxy add-on. You download it, you put it in your as your applications that you're using. And now we're in what we're doing actually is we're coming from a borrowing request, right? So I'm in the borrowing request task list, and this could be a list of requests where, for example, I can see very clearly that they're in the status created borrowing request, and they were not fulfilled by one of our networks, and we need to get it for our user in a different way. So what actually the Cloud App does is that once I open it up, it will take everything that's active on that set. Could be everything, but I suggest you create a set of something that you can mark as not fulfilled or based on any criteria that you decide. You open up the Cloud App, and the Cloud App is going to come and open up with all of the information regarding this particular article. So what you're seeing here is that it's going through the list, and it's bringing me the price for those articles that they held. If they don't hold it, there's a very clear message. Sorry, the example doesn't show that, but if it's not found on Reprints Desk, then it's clearly shown. If it's found, it's also clearly shown, and also the price is clearly shown, which is fantastic. So you have an idea of exactly what's happening and how much you will need to pay for that. Then I select the one that, let's say the first one, I select the first one, and what the system actually does is that it shows me that the request was successfully submitted to Reprints Desk. And you can see here that our partner will be clearly marked as Reprints Desk. So of course you'll be able to do analytics, you'll understand where this is going, etc. If we go to the right plane after I close the Cloud App, and if I go to the right, if I click edit here, just to see what's going on the request, I don't need to do it. I'm just showing you that everything is moving on into the request. You can see here, of course, the partner is Reprints Desk. It has an external identifier that was assigned. But you can also see that the shipping cost was moved to the right place. What is happening now is I'm going to give you a little bit of behind the scenes. In your terms, we're done. The system is now, Reprints Desk is sending the article is going to be received, and we, on the back of Rapido, have a job that is at all times checking if there are new articles for new requests from Reprints Desk, and the whole flow is going to be completed successfully. So you'll see that the article will be sent to the user once it's retrieved by the job. I can't show you that, but that's what's actually happening behind the scenes. And it will be sent, the borrowing request will be closed and the article will be sent to your user. And the fantastic thing is that, of course, they will be able to find this under their Patreon cards as if they have done with, if it was a regular request. So they'll have all of the download functionality and the view of the request, etc. How do we configure this? So this is yet another from our side. This is yet another partner that needs configuration. So you can see here that the code this time is Reprints Desk. You can call it however you want. It seems that Reprints Desk is a good name. The profile time is type this time is external system, and the system type is Reprints Desk. Okay, so this is the first thing. If we go to the parameters tab, they look a little bit different. The only thing that we need here is what Reprints Desk have supplied to you, which is the username that Reprints Desk gave you and a password. That's it. That's all. It's wonderful. Now, I do want to, before we move to our next area of the November release, I want to say that we have more of these type of integrations coming up. So you'll be able to select in this type of cases which vendor suits you better. So stay tuned for other similar organizations that are providing similar services. We will implement these integrations in the same way that we've done this. Just to share a little bit behind the scenes, I have to share a little bit of behind the scenes. I just have to tell you that the Reprints Desk team were really happy. We did the development with their help, meaning they provided information and helped us test. But we did the development from our side, and they were like amazed to see the nice, clean interface. So I hope you enjoy it as well. So this is I hope you enjoyed this integration. I know many of you were waiting for it. Okay, so we are moving now to our end user centric developments. And with this release, we're increasing visibility. So we want to give more visibility to our users. And what we've changed in this release is you can see here that for document delivery, they have very clear information on what is the total number of views that they have for a particular article. And they also can see how much time they have after their first download. So for this particular one, they have 4 views and they can access it 30 days after the first download. Now, after this user has actually seen this article, and in this particular case, our user has seen it twice, you can see that we also update the remaining information. So what I showed you before was before the user had touched it at all. So we just had like you have 4 views and 30 days from first download, which is we yet don't know when this first download is. But once the activity is taking place, the card, the Patreon card is updated. So you can see here that now we have this particular user has only 2 more views, so he has seen it twice. And the download expiry date has been updated. So this is going to be available for him up until this date. So yet increasing the visibility for our patrons. Another great thing that's happening with this release, and I know that many of you are waiting for this, is related to display logic rules. So what are the display logic rules? We all love them, but is our way of determining when and in which conditions we actually don't want to show or want to show a resource sharing request option. And many of you have, of course, selected to hide the service if, for example, you have a full text to provide to your users. So you don't want them to start asking for things that you're actually you actually have available for them by your organization, acquiring them or other ways. What the problem that we had is that when selecting this option, this was not applying to resources that are managed at the network zone. And we know that many consortia actually, this is the way they manage this type of electronic resources. So even though they were using this option to hide the full text, it would be the resource sharing request option would be only hidden for those that were held at the institution, but not that those that were managed at the network zone. So, okay, November release. I know many of you are waiting for this, and it's here finally. Okay, long text. So I will tell you the story so you don't have to read. So what happens when a user clicks get it? When a user clicks get it, either from get an article or get a chapter, or when they click from a journal or for a conference proceeding, when they click get it, a form opens up. Now we've been doing a lot of work on what form opens up. Sometimes we don't want to overload the user, so we present a very small form. A good example for this is an article. We don't need them to fill in the pages, so we don't want them to go through the question, should I put in the pages? We don't need it. That's coming out of the Rapido experience of searching, and thus we know what form to show. But as many of you that have been with us for a relatively long time, you know, we've been fine-tuning these forms. For example, music score is a very good example. We were showing forms that didn't have actually the right information that would be needed for a music score type of resource. The same we did in the past versions for conference proceedings. And what we're touching upon now is a different scenario. But before I touch on the scenario that we've fine-tuned, I want to say that, of course, which forms open up is depending of the metadata, the resource type, and the information from which that user is coming from. So just to give you an example, you know, of course, that Rapido, in Rapido, you can request via OpenURL. And there were cases where the genre was missing from that OpenURL. And actually, we were using the genre also as part of our criteria. And a good example would be a book in this case. And in that case, for digitization, only the small form for digitization would appear. By small, I mean you didn't have the options to select a chapter or a page. And of course, you cannot ask for a complete digitization, usually, let's say, a complete digitization of a complete book. So what we've done is refined the algorithm behind this mechanism of deciding. I'm just giving you a glimpse. Nothing is changing from your side. The only thing that might be changing is that your users are getting better forms. So a good example is that if the genre is not book, I don't have a genre, I'm coming from an OpenURL request. We also check more information. If it has an ISBN, for example, we understand that we probably need to present that longer form. And that's what we're doing now. So we're presenting the longer form that has possibilities for adding more information, such as from page to page or chapters. So from your side, there's no change, but your users will be getting a more fine-tuned form to fill in their requests when needed. I don't know if you've noticed this, but the green confirmation message after you placed a request, the request was successfully submitted, was something that none of you could change. So it wasn't customizable. And just for you to know that we have customers that speak many languages, and they even support many languages in their institutions. A good example is SLSP, the whole Switzerland consortia with all of their libraries. And of course, they support German, French, Italian, and they needed to customize this to suit their end users and their languages, but of course the text as well. So just a little thing to know, if you are dying to customize this message, you can now do that. And it's just done by the regular labels mechanism. I'm showing you the exact label that you would need to change if you wanted to change the wording, but now it's possible. Now it's possible to customize it and change it accordingly, specifically for languages. Okay, so this was for our users. Let's talk a little bit about our not less important staff. So let's talk about staff-centric developments. So we've done a few developments around labels. Many of those developments were around infrastructure. So if you see that maybe the colors look a little bit different or the spacing or something like that, there's no major functionality change, but we did some work on infrastructure here. But together with the change in infrastructure, you will see that when you want to add a label, like here, I'm starting to type app, and I'll see that this opens up with all of the options that I have for labels with this text, and you can now multi-select. So multi-selection was added for labels, and just stay tuned because we're releasing a few more in the future releases, upcoming releases. We have some new label functionality that all of you are waiting for, so just stay tuned. Okay, I'm moving to a totally separate story, a separate user case, and I know that this is something that will really ease your workflows. Okay, so I want to talk about the resupply function that we have from the borrowing side. This function is a function that already exists, and this is our case. So I'm a borrowing library. I receive a borrowing request for an article, a digitization of a chapter. Our wonderful network of almost 600 customers, really almost, provides it. And suddenly I see that, or my user complains that a page is missing, okay? So we introduced an action back even a year ago, I think, an action named Resupply Request. And the action has a very dedicated purpose. The purpose of the action is to say, okay, I've seen that the request is missing something, something's wrong, something went wrong, and I do want to request it again, but I don't want to create a new request, and I don't want to change partners. This is just a mistake that happened because of a misunderstanding or something like that. So once I click on the resupply action, a pop-up window comes in and I need to add a reason. For example, the scan is missing a page. So this is what I'm doing. And as I said, this functionality existed before. And what you can see is that I'm still on the borrowing side. The request is sent to the partner, and the partner is the same partner that provided with this request. Okay, so I'm sending it, I'm sending the request, and this is the same request. Now, what is the problem that I had from the lending side? This is what's coming up with this release. The problem from the lending side is that there was no, even though the node was passed to the lending request with explaining what was missing, in this case, one page, the problem was that actually there was no clear indication that this was a resupply request. So I've already dealt with it, and I don't have any visibility at all that this is coming because of this reason. So what we're doing here, what we're providing you from November, and it's something you need to configure, is the possibility to create an alert for this type of request. So let's start with the configuration, just to get it out of the way. We've added, so you go to Rapido, to the configuration menus, you go to resource sharing, and under Manage Rapido Alerts, that option already existed for other alerts. We've added a new alert. This one, resend request received, and you need to enable it. So this is my recommendation for you guys. You get the November release, rush to your, I don't know, system librarians, do it yourself, whoever can do this, put on the alert, okay? This is the first thing that you will need to do, my recommendation. And then what happens in the system? Once the borrowing side does what I showed you before, so he's hitting the action resupply, he's putting on a reason on why he needs this resupply. What we're getting here is the following. So I'm the lending institution this time. First thing, because I've added an alert is added here to the main task, and you can clearly see the alert, right? Now I know and I can see it, and I could facet. In a second, I'll tell you what I recommend to do. I can also clearly see the note. So I can remove notes, etc. But I also have under the alert section, I clearly have the reason of the alert. And once I resupply the material that with the missing information or page or I don't know, scanned incorrectly, then I can remove the alert, etc. And I'm done. The request will be completed. What I suggest to do, my suggestion, my workflow recommendation for you is to create a set for those that have this alert as active, okay? So I think that this is how I did it, okay? So I'm creating an active, this is active, so it has been reactivated. It probably was completed or shipped or in some final status. And I'm selecting the alert that I want, and I'm creating active resupply requests. So I can easily find them, but not only easily find them, I know these are this requests are coming due to this reason. And of course, you can go far beyond this, right? You can go far beyond this by checking what's happening. Maybe your scanner is not working well. Maybe your students are rushing when scanning. I don't know. Take further actions, which is something that you couldn't do if you wouldn't do it in a workflow-oriented way. So this is the new functionality. So again, it's completing the resupply action, but this time from the lending perspective. I want to show you a little change. It's really a little change, but I don't want you to rush and go and open cases. So this is why I want to show you. It's intentional. It's not something that we did without intention. And it's about the title linking behavior that you have in the main task list. So I have here two windows. One window is the lending request, and the second window is the borrowing request. Previous to, and you can take a look now when we finish this webinar, you can look at your Rapido. You'll see that both from the lending request and from the borrowing request, the titles of the resources had a link that will bring you into the resource itself. So it will bring you to the inventory. You could see your items. You could, from there, push to cataloging. You could do a lot of stuff from the library perspective. Now, this link is clickable. It's very easily clickable, but it doesn't make sense to have it from the borrowing request because you don't actually have that resource, and you actually also at this point, the item that is created is a temporary item. You don't handle that inventory, etc. So from now on, what you have is that it will be linkable from the lending library as today, but it's not linkable because it was bringing you to a kind of dead end window from the borrowing request. So just a little thing just for information and ease of use that I want you to be aware of. Beyond that, I've covered the main highlights that I wanted, and I still want to go through my frequently asked questions and also see if you have more questions. Beyond that, there are a lot of fixes that are coming with this release. So for example, I just want to touch upon one that might be relevant for you guys. So we have last resort of Iliad, you know that, and we added at some point the option to use a regex in order to manipulate from the Rapido side for the partner, where you're saying from the partner of that integration, the Iliad partner record, you could manipulate and say, my IDs in Alma, right? So I'm coming with the users from Alma, match which ID which ID from Alma is matching the ID that you have in Iliad. But in some cases, some of our users have, for example, a partial part of an email. So we added at some point a regex functionality. So you could say, only take this part of my Alma ID to match upon the Iliad ID. So for example, the first part, the prefix of the email up until the dot, I don't know. So we added this regex functionality to enable that cutting. And but there was a problem with it. So this also is being solved with the November release. So I encourage you to take a look, and many other fixes that are coming up with the November release. So it's a very big and nice release, and wanted to share it with you. I'm happy to share it with you. And touching upon all of our areas, and we'll see that our themes will continue to be directed, all of our developments will continue to be directed towards that resource sharing vision that I showed you at the beginning. And now let's move to some of the things that we stumbled upon. So we have now a large community. We have also a prospect community, and sometimes I'm being asked questions. And I want to share a question that I was asked. So I was asked if you can limit the number of requests for a user. Specifically, it's a user group, because we can block users when there's a problem, not a specific user. But whether is there a limitation for users? So the answer is yes. You use terms of use. These are the terms of use that are relevant for this functionality, and specifically for Rapido. From the configuration, fulfillment menu, terms of use, there are two options that might be relevant. One is how many active requests you want to allow your patrons to have. So, for example, could be 5 requests that are active, or how many requests you want them to have per year. So you can also limit that. Now, I do want to say here, between us, not many customers use this. Our Rapido community is very generous, and most of the customers just don't limit. So really, one person asked me, and I said, hey, I need to share this with the community just to make sure that they know, but I'm not really sure that you want to make use of this. I'll just mention that, of course, the configuration is not just the terms of use. You need to associate the resource sharing library and define the boring terms of use based on this. But it's a very easy process, but just letting you know that it exists. So what will happen if a user tries, let's say I set it up for no more than 5 active requests. What happens if he tries to go and look for the 6th, to place the 6th request? He will get our general resource sharing message that you can, of course, configure and write your own terms and conditions and why he's getting this message now. Okay, so this is the end of my presentation. So I really want to go back to see you. So I'm going to stop sharing, and I want to see what we have in our chat. Okay, so I'm going to take a look if there's there are questions. And okay, guys, I have lots of questions, and some of them I don't even know how to answer you just by the timing. So there's a question here about, does this work in general Alma resource sharing? Lori, I'm putting you on the spot. You have to tell me what. So I'm going to try to see if I can unmute you in some way, and you tell me what you're asking. Let me see if I find you. Lori, you're on mute.
Oh, thank you. Can you hear me? Can you hear me okay?
If you want to ask what functionality exactly. Sorry, this is part of asking questions at the end.
Can you hear me all right? I don't think you can hear me.
Oh, I can't hear you, Lori, for some reason. I can't hear you. I don't know if others can hear you. I know you're speaking, but I I can't hear you. So I'm scrolling down. Oh, you can hear her. I can't hear you for some reason. So I'm getting notes that everyone can hear you and I cannot hear you.
So I'll go ahead and say
Why?
it for everybody else. I was wondering about the applicability of the Reprints Desk article
You all can
Galaxy.
hear. This is what I'm seeing in the chat. You all can hear Lori. I can't hear Lori.
I'll add it to the chat.
So maybe some of my colleagues will send me a quick chat on Lori, or you can send me a quick chat and then I'll see what you're talking about. And meanwhile, I'm going to mute you because I can't hear you, and I'm going to, oh, okay, thank you. So my colleagues are texting me fast, which is great. The reprints desk now, I think it's only for, the way we implemented it now, it's only for Rapido. Okay. A little bit of behind the scenes, someone here is telling me that the people in Reprints Desk really like the integration, so I'm happy to hear that. Okay, I also like it. Okay, let's see, we have some questions here from Canada. Okay. Okay, excellent question. Thank you. I'll say your name, Becky. Thank you. So resupply works when the request is already completed and will make the request active again on both the borrowing and the lending side. The answer is yes. Small caveat. Great question, Becky. The caveat is that this functionality, and I think this is the way it should be, is limited to the first 7 days, and you can only do it once. So it's something that you can use between the 7 days of first receiving that article, and you can only do it once. But this is kind of the way it has worked for the Rapid community also always, and also it's not a dead end. If at the end you still need to do this, you can create a new request for this and get it from someone else. But in between those 7 days, yes, you can use it then. Okay, another question regarding the linking functionality, and it's really important because I don't want you to report bugs that are, at least are not considered bugs, is that all of the, from the borrowing side, all of the titles are not linkable anymore. Okay, this, by the way, this is not a simple decision that we took, but it's a decision that we got from our UX team that they're working in all of the products of the high ed, and they came to us with this feedback. So yes, this is the way it's working now with their recommendations, and we'll see. Okay, we'll see how the community receives this. I just wanted you to know that this is on purpose and not a bug. But we heard about many mistakes done by libraries or complaints about inefficiencies because of these links. So this is why we did it. Okay, let's see if I have more. Okay, thank you all for trying to help me with Lori's question. Now I know that I cannot unmute you. Now I'm going to the chat, and let me see what we have here. Okay, I have a good question that I think I'm not really sure, so I'll need to check. Will the number of views features that is shown to the end user is also visible from the staff side or just from the patron card? My belief is that it's only from the patron card and not from the staff. I'm wondering the use case, but again, don't take me. I'll check. I'll check and I'll make this information available even through the release notes or the documentation. We'll fine tune it, but just in terms of and I think this is coming from Sarah. So thank you, Sarah, for the question. I wonder what would be the use. Maybe if a patron comes to you and asks you what's happening and you want to have the same kind of view, I suppose maybe this is the case. But we'd love to hear, what is the story behind, why would staff need that? the reason I'm telling you is that we might have decided not to show this because we show a lot of information and we want to make sure that you're seeing the relevant and most useful information, but it could be that it's something that we need to further do if we didn't do it, but I'll need to check that. Okay. Okay. Yes, after the meeting, could you share the link to the video for the Find Partner functionality? Guys, I added the video, the link to the video. First of all, I can try to link fast before we leave, but I added, if you all, and again, it's a request to make sure you're receiving the Rapido list, so make sure you're subscribed. I think that in my last highlights, I added the link, but I'll try to send it now because we have a few seconds and it's really easy to find. So I'll send that in a second. You are, bear with me. It's really easy to find. And meanwhile, you can think about other questions. And it's here in a second. So I'm sending this to all of you now. Okay, it's there, I hope. Okay, it is. Okay, trying to see if there are other. So there's a question here about, is there a way for staff to readjust the account views, such if a technical issue occurs for the patron? Currently, that functionality does not exist. We can't. I would suggest that at this point, if something happened, you just request again for the patron, but you cannot readjust those counts at this point. And I understand that this is coming from maybe some concerns about this might be some concerns about, like exceeded access because of something. So because of troubleshooting, this is what I'm seeing here in the comments. So I just want to say that this functionality of limiting the views already existed. Okay, so it's not something new, the number of views. It is something that existed, is something that you set up in the configuration by yourselves. What we're adding here is the visibility to the users. So those limits already existed. We're just exposing them now to our users. Okay. Okay. Excellent. I think I've run through, at least what I'm seeing, all of the questions for now and your comments. And thank you for attending this webinar. You know where to find us if you have more questions. I hope you enjoy the November release. And I can tell you, since I'm coming from the future, that we have some very exciting new features for December and for next year. So stay tuned. Our next meeting is in about a month. It should be out there. I'll send reminders for you guys to register. So thank you all. Take care.